You're working on a board with Cordano, Russell.
Right.
Right. He's a big guy. He's what is he? He's 235 pounds, 6'4".
Yeah.
And he's
Monster.
what, 18 years old? He's
At 19 now.
19, right?
Yep.
And this is coming from our YouTube community, Christian O'Rich. Hope I said that right. I really want to hear more about the project to develop Cordano a stronger board. 6'4", 235 pounds, 15-inch wheelbase. So he's on a 15-inch wheelbase.
15.
And we talked about it before that. It's almost like I wanted to know if wait, hold on. I wanted to know. Well, I wanted to know if like board sizes should be like shoe sizes, right? Because you had mentioned like a wider stance, a smaller stance, like somebody's body size should be equivalent to what they're riding.
Right. So in my personal opinion, the wheelbase should be in relation to your height.
Okay.
And if you want to get really specific, it would be inseam. But I don't have enough data on inseam. Height, I got 25 years of data on height. I understand it. It's a really great control. Inseam's just been on my radar for 3-4 years.
What would a, say, 5-foot person versus a 6-foot person, what would the difference be with the wheelbase in that?
Here's my Create Skate height chart I put up here. So a 5-foot person, right, is going to be right here, and they're 13.5-inch wheelbase.
Okay.
But they're probably riding a 14 1/8 or 14 1/4 because that's market
That's
average.
standard, yeah.
So this is some math I've shared in the past, but an average man in the USA is 5'9". Mm-hmm. The average man in the world in Asia is 5'7". So now we're talking full-grown adults.
Sure.
We're not even talking children. This chart was really about children growing up. Nija took the slow step through this chart. But if we look at women, the average woman in the USA is 5'4". The world's 5'3". Asia's 5 foot.
Okay, it's a big difference.
Big difference.
Yeah.
And then that, for me, the way I build smaller boards is they're thinner and lighter. Who wants a thinner and lighter board?
I do.
Everybody does, right? Okay,
yeah.
We're going to chop your legs off a little, tune you down.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't want that. I don't want that. I like being 6 foot. So to answer my question, so a 5-foot person versus a 6-foot person, what's the difference in wheelbase? What are we looking at?
So here I would put a 6-foot tall person on a 15-inch wheelbase.
You would put a 6-foot tall person on a 15-inch wheelbase.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That seems pretty. 15 is
it's long,
right?
What's your inseam?
I don't know.
What do you mean
bro?
inseam? Like your
do you
waist?
Want me to measure right now? I don't know what the.
I could.
Well, the inseam is the
right
from their groin down to
it's
the.
It's crazy to me. People buy pants and they don't know their inseam, but
right.
You can't buy pants without understanding the waist and the inseam are part of a pant. The wheelbase and the width is part of a skateboard. And then the reality is that people want to know the length. The length is a byproduct of everything else being right. It's a byproduct.
Here's the problem, though, Paul. This isn't like the shoe business. This is like there's a standard issue, like you just said. There's a standard issue that everybody orders, which is 14 1/4, right? That you said?
Right now, yeah.
Right now. So companies don't sell boards according to people's heights. It's not like the shoe size, right? Where it's, they sell 10.5, a 10, a 11.5, an 11, a 12, like the industry is conforming to like one wheelbase almost.
Right. No, it's pretty lame.
It's lame.
Yeah, it's lame, because it's, the hard reality is you go into a skate shop, you're really excited about a brand or pro or a graphic. Mm-hmm. You walk in there's a bunch of other brands, pros and graphics. You get all distracted or like, oh, wow, this is rad. This is cool. Yeah, you lose track of what's most important. How does it work for me? How does it work for me? Now, what happens with skaters, in general, they figure out they like this size wheel, they like this size truck, and it's always the board's fault. The things aren't working right.
It's never my fault, Paul.
Yeah,
never.
It's always the board's fault.
I never cared about. I mean, we grew up. I never cared about wheelbase. Never cared about anything.
I realized
but other people did.
Yeah, there's people that did.
So Rick and Mike cared about
For sure
wheelbase.
they
would come to the shop and work with Mike Pust at that time that made templates at my shop, and they were super concerned about that, But they grew up under Rodney's tutelage, right? But also in your era didn't want to see it, have it. They're like, I don't care.
Yeah, just give me the board.
All the guys beforehand were like, I'm drawing my board on a grocery bag because that's the easiest way to get a long piece of paper is unfold a grocery bag and here's what I want, right? And that went away.
Skate companies are already selling their boards per size, and that they don't want to get into another inventory rush of having now lengths.
Well, now the metric is all the more because now you say, well, where's the fingers are flat? How tall is the tail? What's the angle of the tip? What's the angle of the tail? Is it symmetrical? Is it not symmetrical?
So working with Cordano, who's 6'4", 235 pounds, is that a challenge for you? Or are you just like, oh, this is what you need? Are we adding more plies to it? Like, what are we doing?
So it's amazing. And it is a challenge, but also it's just a way to go refine what I know. Mm-hmm. But it hasn't come to the point where my customers are saying, I want to buy that. Okay.
Right.
So that's part of what it comes down to.
And your customers are the skateboard
brands.
companies.
Right.
I almost feel, continue. Sorry, yeah. I'll tell you.
Right.
After.
So what happened at Cordano is Mike said, hey, he breaks boards, and I meet him, and I was like, wow, okay. And his spirit and his personality is such an amazing person, and it's so cool. And every time I meet up with him, he's usually with family, and it's cool. Whether we meet at the skate park, whether we meet, wherever, Balboa Park.
Yeah.
One day I met him in Balboa Park. The guy, he's like, well, I've been here twice trying to get this trick, and he's filming, right? And I thought it was going to be in this Thrasher part, and it wasn't in it. He grabs his board, waits for a car, runs across the street, pushes uphill, rolls up a little ramp, metal ramp he's got.
Don't tell us what trick he's going to do, though.
No, but don't. You always.
I
ask
know,
what the
but
trick
out of
is.
respect for Cordano and the trick that he's trying, I would tell us after the show. But you know what I mean?
This is a
though.
year and a half ago.
Oh, this is a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I thought this was recent.
No.
Oh,
But anyways,
Tell us the trick there.
I can't remember if it was 8 or 10 stairs.
Gotcha,
I
okay.
don't remember what it was.
okay.
He board slides up it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the third time he's been at the spot to work at it. And I'd never seen him in the battle, right? I'd never seen him in that battle. And then his dad's there, and his dad's got things to say, and I got a thing or two to share, of course, And he finally does it a little sketchy, and then finally does it perfect. But the energy to run and push uphill 40 times to have enough mass and energy to go up a rail 8 or 10 stairs.
Athlete, dude.
Yeah.
He's an athlete.
Yeah.
Something that Leo said in the Thrasher thing about him, like to take a hit, like you see him hit his crotch 3 times and just bounces up and keeps on going.
He's a beast.
Now he also has long legs, and everybody's thinking my leg's on that rail,
Right.
And the reality is for him, he's getting a light touch. But if you were 4 inches shorter, there's no light touch.
Oh, dude, hey, my
right?
balls would be in my throat, bro. Yeah.
Right.
So
It's this proportionate scale thing, right?
Right.
So with him, I started off instantly still trying to figure out shape. We figured out one shape. I've never even messed with shape at Cordano because he goes through a board so quick, he doesn't care. It's like, I'm not going to waste my time on that, But we got him in the zone. He'd had a board. He actually had a Powell flight board that he liked. There was a Samanaga one. And he's like, this is the best performing board I got for me. But he still goes through them, right? And then he's buying boards at this point in time, And in the what did I figure out today? It was 19 months I've worked with him. He's gone through 201 boards. Wow! So it was like 2.4 something boards per day or something.
Nuts, dude.
Yeah.
because he's breaking them.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't break them anymore.
Well, what did you do?
Okay, so he really breaks them. Okay. So first of all, I started with thickness.
Okay.
Okay. Now people I saw comments, make it 9-ply. Now I already figured that out in the early 90s that when I make it 9-ply, I plasticize the wood so much that the nanotubes are filled with plastic and they're dead tubes.
We don't want to mess with the nanotubes.
dead
What about
tubes?
8-ply?
More glue, less nanotubes.
Explain
Okay.
really quick just what the nanotubes are for people maybe haven't watched you on our show before.
Well, that was the amazing thing. 'Cause when I came to the show the first time, and everybody's like, nanotubes, like it's pop, right? These tubes that are in this wood right here.
Yeah.
This is probably walnut in this part of the table,
beautiful
right?
table, man.
And
Focus Woodworks.
Focus Woodworks,
Yeah.
right? Yep. And they shipped this thing all the way across the ocean
God
to you.
bless 'em.
Amazing. I made some of those boards in there and shipped them all the way there, and they shipped them
They
all the
shipped
way
them right back.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so the nanotubes?
So the grain that's in this tree is nanotubes, right? And from the bottom of the tree's sucking up water through those tubes, and it's getting nutrients. It's getting nutrients from the sunshine. How do you think that water gets to the top of that tree?
Nanotubes.
Through the tubes, right?
Okay.
But the leaves get hot. They suck on the tens of thousands of leaves on top of the tree.
Right.
Gets the water to nourish the tree.
Oh, so they're sucking the water up through the nanotubes.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Right.
So,
So those tubes are a highway.
so nanotubes are very microscopic
Yep.
Highways.
highways.
Yeah.
And what happens with it when a tree is cut down and there's no more sucking?
Right. So to be clear, the highway of a tree, when you look at growth rings on a tree, only the outside layer is growing.
Okay.
The rest of the tree is done growing.
The rings.
It's locked in place.
Okay.
Right. And this ties to some of the comments about environmentalness of a skateboard, right?
Yeah, so
Do you
I have a
realize
lot.
if you have a piece of wood and it doesn't rot, it's a carbon sink?
Explain.
It's a carbon sink. They talk about carbon in the air and pollution, right? So pollution is carbon floating in the air, the particulate, right?
Sure.
If you burn this, it's going to put carbon in the air. If you let it rot, it's going to put carbon in the air at a very slow rate. So if it falls down in the forest and puts carbon in the air, it's a slow rate, it's going to rot and do that, right? If you burn it, it's going to put carbon in the air at a fast rate. If you keep it in a stable state, it's holding that carbon. It's not putting it back in the environment.
Okay.
Okay. Just this last week, and what they're talking about heat in North America, crazy, right? You know, in temperature and how we had this slow climb coming, right? And it's all carbon related. It's basically breaking down the protection Mother Nature has given us, right? You know, and so what I'm trying to illustrate there is if you let a hard maple tree fall in the forest and rot, it's going to put carbon in the environment.
Okay. Naturally.
Right. Now, this is part of Mother Nature's cycle, but man's accelerated the cycle by burning fossil fuels and other things, right? You know, we have all this great stuff right here because of it, but nevertheless, there's a byproduct to everything. Every action has a reaction.
So when the tree is no longer living, the nanotubes freeze?
They're just there and solid. If they're,
They're
not
there and
rotting,
solid, okay.
they're not there and rotted.
Right.
So getting back to Cordano, because
Yeah.
I'm going down a whole
No,
nother-
this is great. Yeah. I was going to bring you back.
Right. So with Cordano, I quickly went to thicken up the boards and make them like the hot sauce board I made for Julio. Put a thicker ply underneath the top face because that's where the energy is from the top when you put your energy on the nose and the tail, and where you put the wood in relation to the board, and where you position it, and that worked pretty well for them. Then we started work to make it thicker, and then basically they break. So you can remember the jump ramp era of the 80s and boards breaking. Roger remembers that, right, Roger?
Definitely.
Hell yeah. I know you're back there. And because boards were so thick that they broke easy. Now, also, there wasn't much concave in the back because they didn't have parallel concave. They had very little concave in the back and a bunch in the front.
Yep.
So part of it was that, but it was also thickness, like how thick the board is and how it breaks. So basically, as we got into the 90s, Chuck Holtz at Vision figured out, hey, I can make the cross pans 50 thousandths thick and make the board thinner and lighter, and that allowed it to flex a little more, right? And that sort of led us into, you know, the football shapes of the 92, 93, and, you know, by 94, we're just popsicles, right? And now we got this standard thing. Now, the popsicle had this shallow concave that was needed at that time, and then basically I made Element Featherlight in 98 to satisfy Chris Markovich because he wanted the board thinner and lighter. And I'm like, you got to settle for more concave or you're not gonna, it's not going to work.
Okay.
And that's what changed the concave. So back to Cordano's board is that it's the combination of the nanotubes, where you put them, the amount of concave, all of that. So we played with different molds. We found out where his fingers of flat like to be. Because he's such a big, powerful person, usually someone young like him wants their bolt holes right near the bend. And they sense it, but they don't say it, you know, but they sense it. And that's because they want it to be hyper, because they don't have the skills yet. When you got the skills, you want your bolt holes far apart. You can remember the fingers of flat thing in the 90s, right? I use fingers of flat as a thing, and people are like, well, use a tape measure. Well, the tape measure doesn't actually cuddle the tail. The fingers do. And I always have these with me. Now, I have a tape measure with me all the time, right?
Right.
But most people don't. And so to me, that definition of understanding that, because if you have a board that has 2 fingers of flat versus 1.5, well, the 1.5, when you put the tail on the ground, the nose is going to be higher up, okay? And if you have less, the nose is going to be lower, right? But also the power of the pop. Now, when you go to manual, if you have more fingers of flat, it's easier to manual. If you have less fingers of flat, it's harder to get in the zone, but then when you lock in. Like in general of a manual, you lock when you find your lock, right?
You pinch. What we joke about, the pinch almost. The
pinch.
Yeah.
The good old pinch.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that for Cordano's board, you thickened up
I thickened
the
up
first or second ply?
I thickened up
ply?
a second ply.
Second ply. Did you work
Now,
with hemp or anything?
So I thickened up a second ply,
Which
thickened
makes the
up-
board weigh more.
but way more.
Okay.
Right? But proportion, size.
He's
He's
a good-
already
he's
an
a-
8
right.
3/4 board. He's already a big board, anyways.
Okay.
And then I played with some fiberglass reinforcements, some things I've done in the past, and he was like, "Wow, this is working really good." And then I moved the factory, and I took apart that department where I had those resources that were sitting still. And we were moving the factory. I saw some hemp fabric. I'm like, I haven't messed with hemp in a while. And I'm like, I'm going to mess with hemp at Cordano.
It's perfect because that's a really strong property.
Well, the amazing thing about hemp, basically it's fabric like this is, right? But hemp is like nature's fiberglass. It's a very tough fiber, you know?
Okay.
And as much as it has its, smoke it and weed side, there's industrial hemp, right?
Yeah.
You know? And that's what we're talking about here is industrial hemp. And so the industrial hemp, basically you can get a hemp t-shirt. It's the same material, 7-ounce hemp t-shirt's what's in Cordano's board. 7-ounce weight.
Great.
Okay.
And that has fiber going long and cross, so the fiber is 50-50. Now a skateboard has the fiber 80-20, 80% long. So in one way, am I wasting some of that fiber going the wrong way? Well, I'm buying what I can buy. I'm doing what I can do, But I'm just experimenting and improving along. Unfortunately, the stuff's expensive. Everything's getting more expensive. I went to go buy it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it costs this now? It's double of what it was. I used to make some hemp boards for Habitat years ago, and they have one layer of hemp underneath the top face. And the ones I built for Cordano have a layer of hemp underneath the bottom face and the top face. And it works more like a surfboard or a snowboard. If you have either of those and you take a utility knife and drag it across, it's going to break right there. A skateboard will actually do that too. Hard maple. If you take your knife and score your grip tape, that's where it's going to break.
Can you notice the pop is different on hemp?
It's about the lasting. So to be clear, there's only 20 thousandths of hemp in a board that's 400 thousandths thick. Not that much.
Yeah.
Right? Now the hemp, because it's infused with glue, is denser. Those boards are heavy. They're not light, but they're tough.
And they cost more.
I'm just making them to support somebody's needs. Nobody said, do I really want to buy it? And then I'll be like,
Okay.
well, you ready to commit to 10,000? No, I want 12. Yeah, give me 12 of them. It's like, no. Let's
Right.
make 10,000 of these fuckers. Let's make this shit happen. Okay?
Do you think that would innovate?
As long as we make 12, it will never innovate. Even 201 won't innovate. So the interesting thing about hemp is I'm infusing it with the same polyvinyl water-based glue I glue a board with. Not epoxy, not petroleum resins or anything like that. And it's basically Elmer's wood glue in an industrial version. And I'm infusing the fibers with that. And I can machine it with my regular tools and there's no problem. The minute you put fiberglass in there, your cutter goes wah, 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 and you burn out cutters. And then you know what's floating in the air in your factory? Fiberglass particles all over the place.
No bueno.
Now, I remember those pretty good because as a kid, I built sailboats.
I remember you saying, yeah.
And fiberglass was grounded all over the place there. So I probably still got it in my lungs from that.
Sheesh.
But it's got this nastiness. It's got this itchiness.
Right.
Yes.
But I made boards of fiberglass. I built them that way as a kid.
So what was the result in this? He's just not breaking as many boards anymore?
He doesn't break many boards. Periodically he does, and then he's like, look at how this one broke. And I'm like, wow, But look, I got a stack of over 150 boards in my shop. And he gives them to me, and I do my quick analyzation. Sometimes I'll take it, and I'll cut the grip on the front truck and get the serial number and go put it in a database. And I'm collecting data, like, how's this one broken? And the most common thing is just dead. Now, depending where you spot you're on, obviously one spot can wreck a board, right? And sometimes not, And some of the hemp ones, he's lasting a week and a half at times.
Breaking a board is just a part of the game.
It's
It's just about how many
When you weigh 240 pounds and you're going to go up a rail.
Dude, that would...
Yeah.
Imagine your board breaking as you're going up a handrail.
gosh.
You're board sliding and
Well, he was breaking it, on the landing, no? Or was he breaking it going
He'll
on the
break,
right?
he breaks boards into rails.
Okay.
Dude,
He breaks boards into rails.
Not with this new formula, though.
Right.
Less.
No, the hemp ones he hasn't broken them that way.
But
yet.
the
Hemp
problem-
ones don't really break because they have so much fiber to them. But what happens is that still they get He breaks the nanotubes. He breaks them internally. Where you're like, this board looks pretty good still, and it's like, yeah, but it's dead.
The nanotube crusher, dude.
Yeah,
He is not friendly. The
Nano
nanotubes don't like him.
XL Nano Crusher, right?
The problem is, though, is like there are so many big boys out there that would love to have these boards and this technology, but it's just not there yet to be for the consumer. That's what
Right.
you're saying, right?
Yeah, well, a brand has to sense if there's really a marketplace
Right.
for it, and be willing to do it, and then the consumer's got to be willing to pay for it.